This is Level 2 DIY RL43B. This is for rhythm and rhyme. Rhythm is the beat in a poem. Rhyme is the repetition of a sound at the ends of two or more words. Rhythm and rhyme are just two ways in which poets use sound. The rhyme scheme is the pattern of rhyming lines in a poem. To see a rhyme scheme more easily, mark each line with a letter. Begin with the letter A for the first line, then B for the second line, and so on. When you come to a line that rhymes with an earlier one, give that line the same letter. For example, there should be a diner that's open all night, where busy wild beasts could stop in for a bite. The menu wouldn't have to be very expensive, but to draw a good crowd, it should be quite extensive. At the end of each line, we have a type of rhyme. Now, we have line 1, line 2, line 3, and line 4. So let's find our rhyme scheme. At the end of line 1, we have night. At the end of line 2, we have bite. Night and bite have the same end sound, which means they are the same rhyme. So since we start with the letter A to represent night, we're going to also use A to represent bite, since these two words rhyme. Now let's look at line 3. Line 3 ends with expensive. Expensive does not rhyme with night or bite, so we're going to give it the next letter in the alphabet, which is B. And last we look at line 4. It ends with extensive. Extensive does not rhyme with night or bite, but it does rhyme with expensive. Expensive, extensive. So we will also give it the letter B, because they are rhymes. So our rhyme scheme altogether is A, B, B. Some poetry tips. Tip 1. The first time you read through a poem, read for the main idea. Poems may look different from other kinds of writing, but most are fairly easy to read. Some poems are like very short stories. Others are like jokes or riddles. Some are like pictures or snapshots created with words. Don't let yourself get hung up on details the first time you read a poem. If a line seems difficult or confusing, just keep reading. Read for the main idea, the same as you would when reading a story. Tip 2. Look for comparisons in the poem. Poets often look for new ways to describe things. One way they do this is by comparing things that aren't usually compared, or by connecting things that are very different. Comparisons can be made through figurative language. Figurative language is language that doesn't mean exactly what it says. So our directions. Pause the video now and read the poem on the other side of this page about what a fast food restaurant for animals would be like. Then play the rest of the video taking notes on your paper like you see me doing in the video. You should use this as a study aid. Fast Food Chain by Hanson. There should be a diner that's open all night, where busy wild beasts could stop in for a bite. The menu wouldn't have to be very expensive, but to draw a good crowd, it should be fairly extensive. There'd be caribou nuggets for hungry wolf packs, and a thick grassy stew for big hairy yaks. There'd be fresh flopping fish for slick barking seals, and quarter-ton plankton burgers for enormous blue whales. There'd be wild berry pizza for grumbling grizzly bears, and dusty hay salads for wild stallions and mares. There'd be French fried flies or for fat toads and lizards. There'd be rodents with cheese or striped wild cats, and deluxe mosquito burritos for squinty-eyed bats. For the birds there'd be worms and lovely red sauce. For the moose there's a salad of lichens and moss. Wild animals' weird tastes make up the food chain. They all eat what they like, no need to explain. Which leads to a problem that could be a bother. What if the customers start eating each other? Okay, so poems are made up of lines and stanzas. So like we did in the example before, we have line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A lot of times whenever you have a passage, you're going to, that's a poem, you're going to see every few lines, it's going to tell you what number that line is. So it won't number each of the lines, but it'll give you every 5 lines. So 5, 10, 15, 20. So this poem is made up of 20 lines. Now if you notice, every 4 lines are grouped together. A group of lines is a stanza. Stanzas are sort of like paragraphs, but for poetry. So in this poem we have 1 stanza, 2, 3, 4, 5 stanzas. Like we did in our example, we found the rhyme scheme, and it was AABB. Let's look at the next stanza. At the end we have packs and yaks. Since those do not rhyme with extensive or bite, we're going to give the next letter. But packs and yaks do rhyme, so we're going to give it the same letter. Next we have seals and whales. Now that doesn't necessarily sound like a rhyme, but if you're following the rhythm of the poem, it's going to be a forced rhyme, and we can still give it the same letter for our rhyme scheme. So if we're following the pattern of our rhyme scheme so far, the rest of our poem, we can go ahead and give letters for the rhyme scheme too. So we ended with D, E, E, F, F, G, G, H, H, I, J,